Dear students, I am Dr. Neeta. Today, let's see the dissection of spleen. So, this is the spleen. So, it is the largest single mass of lymphoid tissue and it belongs to the reticuloendothelial system. This organ is highly vascular with high regenerative ability, and this is an organ that moves with respiration. So, next, let us see where the spleen is located. So, you can see the anterior abdominal wall. So, you know that 9 quadrants of the abdomen. So, the spleen is located deep in the left hypochondrium, this region, and partly in the epigastrium. And another thing, it lies in the supracholic compartment. What is the supracholic compartment? This is a transverse colon and this is the transverse mesocolon. So, it lies above the attachment of the transverse mesocolon. Okay. Now, in order to visualize the spleen, I am going to remove the stomach. This is the stomach. So, here deep you can see the spleen. This is the spleen. So, it is located posterior to the stomach, then anterior to the left kidney. Okay. So, posterior to it is the left kidney and posterolaterally is the diaphragm. So, the spleen is obliquely wedged between the stomach, the left kidney and the diaphragm. So, you can see the spleen here. You can also see the axis of the spleen. The long axis of the spleen correspond to the long axis of the 10th rib. Okay. So, next we can see the dissected specimen of spleen. First of all, about the shape. It is flat and oblong in shape. So, that is the shape of the spleen. Next, coming to the measurements. So, in order to remember the measurements, you should know the Harris dictum of odd numbers. That is, all these measurements are in odd numbers. So, what are they? It is 1 inch thick, then it is 3 inch broad, 5 inches long, and it weighs 7 ounces. So, 1, 3, 5 and 7, all these are odd numbers. That is the Harris dictum of odd numbers. Then it lies against the 9th, 10th and the 11th left ribs. Okay. And the long axis correspond to the left 10th rib. Now coming to the presenting parts. For that, I am holding it in the anatomical position. So, in the anatomical position, it has got a lateral end and a medial end. The lateral end is facing downwards, forwards and laterally, and the medial end is facing upwards, backwards and medially. So, that is the anatomical position. The lateral end is otherwise known as the anterior extremity and the medial end is otherwise known as the posterior extremity. So, the medial end, it is blunt, directed towards the vertebral column, and the lateral end is broad. The lateral end is more like a border. Okay, these are the two ends of the spleen. Now, next we will see the surfaces. The spleen has got two surfaces, a smooth diaphragmatic surface that lies against the diaphragm and lies parallel to the 9th, 10th and the 11th left rib. That is the diaphragmatic surface, and here you can see the visceral surface. This is the visceral surface. In the visceral surface, you have 4 important impressions. First impression, here there is a concave impression here that is produced by the fundus of stomach. That is the gastric impression. So, this is the gastric impression. Again, below and behind the gastric impression, this area is the renal impression produced by the left kidney. Next, towards the lateral end, that is anterior extremity, you get the colic impression that is produced by the left colic flexure. Another impression between them is the pancreatic impression here. So these are the 4 important impressions on the visceral surface. Then in the visceral surface you get the intermediate border. So this is the intermediate border. It is a rounded border. It becomes more prominent towards the posterior aspect. So this is the intermediate border. Above the intermediate border is this important area in the visceral surface that is known as the hilum of the spleen. Hilum has got important structures. The important ligaments attached are the gastrosplenic and the lanorenal ligament, and the structures, other structures passing are the splenic vessels, nerves and lymphatics. So that is the hilum of spleen. Next we will see the borders. So there are 2 borders, a superior border here and an inferior border. So this superior border separates the diaphragmatic surface here from the gastric impression. This is the superior border, and the inferior border separates the diaphragmatic surface from the renal impression. Next, coming to the superior border, what is a striking feature that you can see in the superior border? So that is the notches. The superior border is notched. There may be 2 or more notches. This notches has got some importance. The anatomical importance is that you can identify the superior border by the presence of these notches. And the embryological significance is that it shows that it is lobulated in development. That is the embryological significance of these notches. Then another very important clinical implication is that if a clinician palpates an organ in the abdomen and that organ is lobulated, then it will be a case, most probably it will be a case of splenomegaly, that is enlargement of spleen. I will show you the notches clearly in another specimen. So can you see the notches here? So these are the notches in the superior border. Next we will see the angles. So the spleen has got 2 angles, an anterobasal angle and a posterobasal angle. So anterobasal angle separates the superior border from the lateral end, whereas the posterobasal angle is seen between the inferior border and the lateral end. Out of this, the anterobasal angle is more important because it is the most forward projecting part of the spleen, the anterobasal angle, and it is palpated. It is the first part that is palpated in splenomegaly. So this angle is otherwise known as the clinical angle of the spleen. So these are the 2 angles of the spleen. So next we will see the ligaments of the spleen in the cadaver. So next we will see the ligaments of spleen. So there are 4 important ligaments. The first one is the gastrosplenic ligament. So the gastrosplenic ligament is already covered in the dissection of stomach. So it is a ligament that connects the fundus of stomach with the anterior lip of the hilum of spleen. That is the gastrosplenic ligament. Then there is a lanorenal ligament that is behind the spleen that connects the anterior surface of the left kidney with the posterior lip of hilum of spleen. So that is the lanorenal ligament. Then here you can see the lanophrenic ligament. Lanophrenic ligament connects the spleen with So this is a lanophrenic ligament that connects the spleen with the inferior aspect of the diaphragm. This is the lanophrenic ligament. Another important ligament is the phrenicocholic ligament. So it connects it is otherwise known as the sustentaculum linei because it suspends the spleen. So this is the phrenicocholic ligament. So that's all about the dissection of spleen. Thank you.